All right, greetings, everybody. My name is Abraham. I'm the president of 17th Ford, North Carolina currently. And in this presentation, I just want to go over some concerns people have about our effort and our goal regarding involuntary servitude and slavery abolition in North Carolina. And I want to gladly present to those who are concerned about any of the issues they have specifically to make sure that our clarifications are as transparent as possible in a very educational and professional manner. So we'll get started. So a quick history and recap. If you haven't watched our previous video on YouTube, I'd highly recommend you do. A quick summary. In North Carolina, involuntary servitude is still legal and exists in our state's constitution as a punishment for a crime. And as you can see right there in Article 1, Section 17 clearly defines what that exception towards voluntary servitude is. Now, it's very important to make a indication that involuntary servitude and slavery are the exact same thing. Many people will say they are completely different. They have no relevance to each other. They might be applied in different ways, but nonetheless, they still stem from the same definition and generally are used interchangeably. According to Black's Law Dictionary, involuntary servitude is slavery, and that is a very reliable dictionary that a lot of legal associates use when defining legal terminology and legal vocabulary. In our state, we actually have a statute that specifically defines what involuntary servitude is, and you can find this in the general statutes in Article 10A. It states that involuntary servitude basically is forced labor, and in addition to that, any person can use deception, coercion, intimidation, or any violence to get what they want from the person who is being subjected to involuntary servitude. And we can see this is no different of a definition than slavery, or at least a slavery that was practiced prior to the exceptions clause of the 13th Amendment, and even to the present day with the exceptions clause in both the federal amendment and our state amendment in North Carolina. We have done as an organization countless meetings with our state representatives and trying our very best to educate the public on this issue. Thankfully, one of our representatives has introduced a bill, which would be a constitutional amendment to North Carolina's constitution, which would strike out that entire exceptions clause to clarify, without any exceptions, that slavery and involuntary servitude both are forever prohibited within the state. There is some language cleanup that needs to be done with the bill for North Carolina House Bill 822, and it will be filed again in 2025, early of next year in the longer legislative session. Again, this whole presentation is dedicated towards clarifying our intent to hopefully and professionally educate our critics on the concerns they have and to ensure that any of the concerns they have are not going to be in any type of effect into our amendments. And we want to make sure we're doing that in a very transparent way. We get a lot of questions like this, so we will go ahead and start with the first critic. With this bill that would prohibit involuntary servitude and slavery as criminal punishment in North Carolina, abolish prisons throughout the state? Absolutely not. Our bill mentions nothing towards prison abolition, nor does it advocate or endorse the prison abolition movement. You want to be very clear on this. It's going to impact prisons, certainly, but it's not going to outright abolish them. Another criticism we typically get is police and prison guards or prison official abolition. Our answer is, again, no. This does not mention any reforms or abolition towards police officers, prison officials, or prison guards in the state of North Carolina. The third concern is prison labor itself. We have to be very specific in terms of how we are addressing this concern that most of our critics have. And this is one of the biggest ones, in addition to the following one that's going to pursue after this concern. So specifically, this bill would basically prohibit any punishments for people who are incarcerated or on parole in the state who refuse to be subjected to involuntary servitude against their will. Because in North Carolina, those who fail to comply with involuntary servitude are met with severe punishments. And I recommend you watch our previous video, which talked about the presentation in the inmate handbook. It gave excellent detail in terms of what the consequences and punishments are in North Carolina for those who don't comply towards being subjected towards involuntary servitude. Although it's going to prohibit the punishments of not accepting involuntary servitude, this bill itself is not going to change any prison labor programs. And what we've seen with states that have amended their constitutions to prohibit slavery and involuntary servitude, none of their prison labor systems have drastically changed in a negative manner. They have actually been more positive recently with their latest reforms because of this amendment. So to answer this concern, it's not going to at all impact the prison labor industry, prison industrial complex, or working in prison at all. And our job and our mission is to make sure that working is available in prison, but it is not forced upon those. And for those who don't want to engage in involuntary servitude with respect to the labor, they don't get punished for it. That's our goal. This is probably, again, the second leading concern that we have as an organization. It comes to prison wages. So will the bill make it so that those who are incarcerated are able to get better labor protections, such as through OSHA or through federal or state labor laws? Or will it most importantly increase the compensation of work and labor done by those incarcerated or on parole, specifically on those incarcerated, since they will be in the prison system? Again, the answer is no. Our amendment is simply a standalone one. Our amendment itself does not mention anything regarding wages or labor. If anything regarding wages specifically was tackled, that would be in its own unaffiliated separate bill that is not in line with our organization by the state legislature of North Carolina. So we are not in the business of reforming prison labor or prison wages at all. We are strictly just trying to focus on this constitutional amendment through legislative action. The next concern we typically get is this really a partisan issue? Some people might say, well, if you're on one side of the political aisle, or if you affiliate with one political party, or if you don't, those people are generally more likely to support it, and the opposite party or side of the aisle is not. And this is simply not the case. In recent years, 7 to 8 states have actually prohibited slavery and involuntary servitude with no exceptions in their state constitutions. Most of them came from deep red Republican-led states. Others came from more swing states, and several of them also came from left-leaning blue states. This is, again, a testament to show that irrespective of the political makeup of a state, as long as we're seeing this in a handful of different states with very different political values, that in itself doesn't make it a partisan issue. Rather, it makes it a nonpartisan issue. For example, Alabama and Tennessee are very much more conservative states than North Carolina. And they, in their state constitutions, have outright prohibited slavery and involuntary servitude in both their state constitutions. Colorado is a swing state. And when they made the amendments, nothing bad happened. The world didn't end. And we had some more blue states like Oregon and Vermont. The same thing. They abolished any exceptions clause in their state constitutions towards slavery and involuntary servitude, as well as Nebraska and Utah, which are more of the conservative Midwestern or Western states. The biggest picture in this is, in addition to hopefully me being able to address any of the criticisms that come in our way in a very professional and educational manner. The message is, again, very simple. As North Carolinians, it is very shameful to have any exception to allow the institution of involuntary servitude and its the legacy of slavery to continuously exist in our state constitution, since we, as a southern state, seceded from the United States and embraced these institutions prior to the Civil War. And then during the Civil War and after the Civil War, it still continued to this day. And our goal, simply as an educational outreach institution, is to make sure that no North Carolinian should ever be subjected to involuntary servitude, slavery, or any other institution of the same. We will be more than happy to have anybody join our efforts. You can certainly send us an email at 17forwardnorthcarolina@gmail.com. Please also check out our website, 17FNC, standing for 17forwardnorthcarolina.com. And you can also reach out to us for any outreach educational events we plan on having in the future, either in person, online, or virtually. If you're not from North Carolina, that's certainly fine. As of right now, according to the Abolish Slavery National Network, there are currently, as of 2024, 26 states in various stages throughout this process to abolish any exceptions that currently allow slavery and involuntary servitude in their state constitutions. So if you're not from North Carolina, but you're interested in this movement, please reach out to the Abolish Slavery National Network, as they will be able to pair you with people either within your state that are working to get this done like we are in North Carolina, or if nobody is there, they can provide you the resources necessary to get your own campaign running to abolish slavery and involuntary servitude in your state. That's it. As patriotic Americans and North Carolinians loyal to the principles of freedom, opportunity, and anti-slavery, we unequivocally oppose as an organization the institutions of slavery, involuntary servitude, and the derivatives on any person, irrespective of their status, whether living civilly, in custody, or having been duly convicted of any offenses. Please reach out to us if you have any questions. We appreciate your time and consideration. And my hope is that I have finally clarified much of the concerns that our critics had. And my message to our critics is simple. Please consider joining us. It's not that we hate you. We absolutely don't hate you. We're on the same team. We're on the same side. We can certainly get this done together. Thank you.